Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. So I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Donald Trump, NATO, the Straits of Hormuz, and, of course, domestic issues, including threats by Brendan Carr. We're going to talk about all of that this morning and try to amplify what is going on. So the first thing you have to know is the war continues. The United States and Israel continue to hit Iran. There is no doubt about it. And they are determined to finish this job. But what is the end result? Is it the complete destruction of Iran's military infrastructure? Yes. Is it the complete destruction of Iran's nuclear capability? Yes. Is it regime change? There's the rub. It appears the regime is pretty solidly in place. But let's deal with the issue that really, really matters, and that is the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil passes through that area. And we know that this war has disrupted, without any question, the oil process around the world. We can see it in the prices we are paying at the pump. We can see it in the cost of plastics. We can see it on every level economically. And so the question becomes, what will we do? The British have said they stand with the United States, but it is not a NATO matter. And the German foreign minister has said the same thing. This is not something for NATO. And what is Donald Trump saying? Donald Trump is saying if our NATO partners don't become involved, they will feel the wrath of the United States of America. Let's remember, please, that Donald Trump has never been high on NATO. He has always been threatening to withdraw from NATO. And the simple truth is, he now needs our NATO allies. But Article 5 says only when we are attacked directly. And that means militarily. And the Europeans, our NATO allies, are clearly saying that the way they see it, what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz is not a military attack. It is an economic attack. There's no question about it. But can Donald Trump bully, and that's what it is, bully the NATO allies into reacting? I don't know how we reopen the Strait of Hormuz, because it is clear that Donald Trump is saying, we're willing to send in our ships, but we want allies to go along with us. And even if we do go in, what is there to guarantee that the ships will not be hit by Iran? And so, my friends, we have a problem. And the question is, how long can the strait be closed? And the question is, how will Donald Trump relate to our allies? And the question is, what will NATO do about all of this? All of these things are real. In the meantime, the Israelis and the Americans continue to pound Iran with everything they have. It's amazing, really. We've never seen such devastating attacks on Iran. And the reason is clear. The Israelis are afraid of Iran as a radical Islamic power who is trying to secure a nuclear capability. The Americans are hitting Iran because, well, Donald Trump doesn't like them, doesn't trust them. We know that Iran is a threat. It has been a consistent threat. We also know that regime change cannot happen without boots on the ground. And although Donald Trump is willing to put some boots on the ground, not in Iran directly, but Kag's Island or wherever, the simple truth is that we have a problem, and Iran has a problem. And the question of how we proceed is going to be critical to American policy. There is yet another issue here, and that is NATO itself. As Donald Trump has spoken disparagingly of NATO, we need to understand the vital security link that NATO is for the West. We remember after September 11th that the only time Article 5 was ever invoked was in defense of the United States of America. After our attack, our NATO allies responded. Now, my friends, push will come to shove. Will Donald Trump pursue a policy which allows NATO to grow and prosper, or will he continue to try to pull the rug out from under NATO? And let me remind you, it is not just Iran which represents a major issue. It is also Ukraine. Remember, the NATO alliance is supporting the Ukrainians against Russia. What are the implications of that? Remembering, of course, that we cannot and will not use military force directly against Russia because of the nuclear threat. And as I've pointed out in the past, but I pointed out again, if Russia did not have a nuclear capability, we would have been all over them. So this is a conundrum for the Trump administration. How to preserve NATO, if in fact Donald Trump wants to do that, and how to proceed in terms of the Iranian government. I want to say a word about regime change. Regime change is very complicated. Our history of regime change in Iran is not good. Going back to 1953, when Mossadegh was overthrown by the United States and the British over the question of the nationalization of Iranian oil, going up to the Shahs being overthrown in 1979, and the emergence of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Our track record is not good. Now, there are those who say, well, 80% of the Iranian people want a change in government. That may be true, but you cannot ask the Iranian people to stand against the Iranian Guard, all of whom have weapons. The people have nothing. And so, my friends, this continues. There is a question about the role of the United States in all of this. As you know, Democrats and Republicans cannot agree on the war powers of the president. And the way it stands, Donald Trump has 60 days, he's now 3 weeks in, 60 days in which, if Congress does not act, he can do pretty much whatever he wants. I've told you in the past, and I will tell you again, that Tom Eagleton, the author of the War Powers Act initially, voted against the War Powers Act because he said it expanded a president's power. It is important to understand that for 60 days, less than 3 weeks, the reality is that Donald Trump really has a free hand. It is clear that Republicans in Congress will not in any way limit the power of this president to make war. And so, every day, more happens. Every day, the decision is being made in the White House as to what to do. And in the end, I believe that the White House will have to be held accountable for what happens in this war, good or bad, because it is Donald Trump's war. Well, let's leave Iran for a moment and talk about something else. Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, is now making threats about licenses held by media in this country. Carr is saying, if you don't report it the way we want it, we're going to take away your license. And so ABC, NBC, CBS, those networks that are subject to the FCC, and remember that cable news or cable networks are not subject because it's cable. Well, Brendan Carr is threatening them again. The regular media, that is to say, ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, they are subject to regulation by the FCC. But the question becomes, why isn't there outrage that Brendan Carr is stepping on, and I do mean this very particularly, stepping on freedom of speech. Carr is not an independent agent. The FCC is no longer an independent agency. It responds completely to the whim and wish of Donald Trump. That is not what the FCC was supposed to do. You and I know it, but Brandon Carr seems not to care. And so the threat to the networks is clear. It is precise. It is unambiguous. And that should concern us all. I want to say a word about the Kennedy Center, which is now called the Donald Trump Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. The president now is faced with a situation where his hand-picked person has left the agency. We don't know all the reasons, but we know that there was controversy about what he was doing. And the question of the freedom of expression, whether it is through network television or through performing arts, is one which needs to be grappled with by all of us. I believe strongly that what Donald Trump is doing is wrong. And I will tell you, the next Democrat who sits in the White House will take Donald Trump's name off of the Kennedy Center. And of course, that would be the right thing to do. We have many issues facing us domestically, but I want to speak particularly about a proposal that Donald Trump has suggested and which I believe is so completely wrong. The Save America Act would limit the number of people who can vote. Indeed, if the Save America Act, which is Donald Trump's top priority, were adopted, 20 million Americans would be thrown off the voter rolls. And of course, the Save America Act would do away with mail-in ballots, except if you're in the military or you're ill or you're traveling. The Save America Act would essentially create a situation in which our rights to vote could be limited. You've got to have a voter ID to vote, according to Donald Trump. But what concerns me about this is a real limitation on American freedom. And let me point out, this is consistent with Donald Trump's attack on democracy. Whether it is Brendan Carr and the FCC, or Donald Trump and the Kennedy Center, whether it is in the implementation of foreign policy, this president seems to think that he is not a president, but rather a king. And that scares me, and it should scare all of you as well. There is much to be said about the American democratic process, and you understand that in November, there will be an election. And in that election, the American people will have a chance to determine whether Congress will be held by Democrats or Republicans. And Donald Trump is afraid of the Democrats winning that election. We're going to be watching very carefully. And I must say a word about the Epstein matter, because as you are aware, foreign governments, particularly Great Britain, want more files released on the Epstein matter because it is having a huge impact on their domestic affairs. The former British ambassador to the United States, well, there are real questions about his connection with Epstein. Did he give Epstein material access to decisions made by the United States government relative to trade? And of course, we all know the implications for former Prince Andrew. There is a simple reality here. The requests for more information on the Epstein matter, well, they're being made by foreign governments, but they're also being made right here at home. Donald Trump could, if he wished, release all of the files on Donald Trump and Epstein, but he won't. It appears that Donald Trump has something to hide about his relationship with Epstein. I'm only pointing this out now because more and more we are going to hear about it in the news. There's a lot to talk about what's going on in the world, and we will continue doing that right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write me a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, click any of the links to the show notes, to connect with me on social media. That's particularly useful for our Friday question and answer session. Remember to share this episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And remember, this show has been getting so much positive attention that we're excited to have the advertising support that we now have. This will help us create more opportunities for Around the Political World with John Rothman. And I, of course, want to do what I do at the conclusion of each podcast. I want to say a special word of thanks to Lynn Sloan, the wonderful producer of this podcast. Without her, we'd be nowhere. Well, I'll be back tomorrow with more right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.